Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. It is September 3rd already, so we're getting into the month quickly, aren't we? And today we're going to look at chapter 9 of the Gospel of John. Now, we have this wonderful story, or some people like to call drama, that plays out through the entire chapter. And so we're just going to get into it, kind of look at it, see what's happening, and see what we can get out of it for ourselves today. And so it begins with the disciples asking Jesus a question when they see a blind man. And they ask, so who sinned? Was it this man that sinned, or was it his parents that sinned? Because he was born blind. So evidently, somebody must have sinned. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been born blind. And so immediately, Jesus, again, as we remember yesterday, is like, we need to shift our paradigm. We've got to think about this differently. And Jesus says, nobody sinned. Nobody sinned. And in fact, what he says is that this man was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. Now, this can get to be one of those times where, we can look at it from different directions. So this particular man, was he blind just so Jesus could show that he could do something, some healing? But I think there's also a sense that whenever we encounter another human being who has difficulties or challenges, who isn't what we, stereotype as normal, it offers an opportunity for us to see the world differently, to be able to watch some people excel in areas that we didn't assume they could. It's a place for compassion and care to come up in new and wonderful ways. And so we could see how God can work through any circumstance. Now, does that happen all the time in life? No. But what so often does happen is when people rely on God, when they have these challenges, I think more often than not, we do see God's miracles working in people's lives. They might not be physically healed, but there's some other types of healing that happen at the same time. And it's sometimes, like we find in this story, it's about our eyes being opened along to the way of what our assumptions about life happen. So that's me kind of jumping ahead. But so right there, Jesus says, though, this is so that God's works can be revealed. And he recognizes that there will be a time when this work won't be able to be done because, of course, he won't be here anymore. So, and as he says, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. So there's this sense of like, I'm going to be able to do things now that you're not going to be able to see in the future, but it's still going to open eyes. And so we have this wonderful moment where then Jesus, it says, takes mud, spits in it with his saliva, and then kind of makes this spread and puts it on the man's eyes. So here he is taking the grossness of the ground and he's taking his own spit and it's bringing healing. And I think that's just one of those other signs of the messiness of healing and how there's that muck and grossness. And then he has to go wash it off too. So he has to go into this, he has to have this muck put all over him, and then he has to go wash himself. So he has to do the work. It's not like Jesus says, oh, let me get a clean towel for you. No, Jesus says, I put muck on your face. Now go figure out how to go clean yourself in a specific place. And yet, after all of that work that is done, this man can see. And of course, what happens immediately next? Nobody believes it. They're like, maybe he just looks like the guy who was born blind. And so we have this moment where the people are like, we don't believe, we need to meet this guy for ourselves. And he's like, I don't know where he is. So, of course, the Pharisees get word that this is happening. And so they start interrogating this man. And they don't believe his story that he was blind before. So then they go to his parents. And his parents are like, yeah, he's the one and everything. But then they start getting really interrogating them in a way. And they start to fear the Pharisees because they've heard that the Pharisees are harming those who are following Jesus and calling him the Messiah. So the parents are like, he's of age. He can answer for himself. And so then the Pharisees go after him again. And they're like, is this guy a sinner? And, and this guy says, I do not know if he is a sinner. He is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. So one of our favorite Amazing Grace hymn kind of pops in right there. And he's like they're like accusing him then of being a disciple. And they claim that, this guy can't be the Messiah. Jesus being the Messiah. And then they say that we are disciples of Moses. And so for this man, we don't know where he comes from. And so, but this other guy, then the blind man, then says, the only thing I know is that God is the only one who can heal sinners. Or we know that God does not listen to sinners. And so that this man, when asked that God would heal me and God healed me, that means he has to be somebody who obeys the law of God, the law of Moses. And he's like, I've never heard of anybody being born blind and then being healed. He goes, so this man, he has to be from God. And then, of course, the Pharisees then go off on him again. You're the blind one. You can't teach us. You're the sinner. And so it's just this kind of crazy fight back and forth. But it just goes to show how when people don't want to believe something, they will do everything in their power to not believe. But what I really love about this blind man is that he also never backs down. Now, he doesn't force his way. He never tries to say he's smarter or he's more righteous now. He in no way makes any of those claims. But he stands true to his witness. And then, which just frustrates the Pharisees. But as you know, they're just like, they don't care what his witness is. And we're going to have that encounter in the world where you might be having that opportunity where you're witnessing and somebody's just going to keep, and you just have to say they're not willing. And they're that blindness. And that's where the next little part where Jesus kind of talks about, you think you're the one who can see, but you're definitely blind. And it was this blind man that can truly see now. But it's on that spiritual level. And Jesus just kind of points out that, sometimes the people who claim the loudest that they know what is right are sometimes the most blind. And so that's important for our faith, that we understand that we're not going to be able to convince or change everybody, because there's some people that have just already made up their minds. And but the only really we can change ourselves, our own hearts, and we can witness. And we have to stay true to our witness. I think that's what's so important about this. This man does not shut up. It doesn't say that he runs away. He still continues to claim his witness of how God has healed him, how Jesus was the one who did this. And I think our world needs to have more witnesses right now. More people who are willing to just say, this is my story of how God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit have been a part of my life. And even if people don't believe, at least we're out there claiming our love of God and our love of Jesus and our love of the Holy Spirit. And that's where I get hope and encouragement today. So thanks for joining me. Tomorrow we're going to look at chapter 10, the Good Shepherd. And thanks for joining me, Pastor Amanda, with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion.